So how can web scale IT apply to an enterprise?
Yeah, so what we're seeing with our enterprise customers is what has been a traditional IT, practice is kind of taking a big vector off into three different sections. One of them is they're taking workloads and moving to the public cloud. I mean, that's absolutely occurring. Another kind of trend that's occurring is what an enterprise used to host as an incumbent or internal application, they're moving out to a SaaS business. Salesforce.com happens to be a really great example, but you're seeing other things like HR applications and other things moving off to SaaS as opposed to internal applications. And then the last situation is when IT really matters to a traditional enterprise. You're seeing them really focus on moving to private cloud, like building their own cloud infrastructure to host that application in the most cost-effective and scalable way.
All right. How does the web scale approach change how they buy IT?
Right. Yeah. That's the interestingly, I should say painful, but it's a mindset tweak that has to occur, and we watch companies go through it. Some go really quickly, but like one of the largest banks in the world is using us a lot, and it took them 4 years to kind of make this flip in their thinking. Traditionally in IT, especially in a large enterprise, a business unit or an application owner would come to the IT department and say, hey, I have my application, I want you to buy these servers and this storage and this networking and all that sort of stuff. We're going to put it all together, and then you're going to support it for the rest of the time. So basically somebody did a lot of the design and they gave it to IT to maintain for the rest of life cycle. It's not how it works in a web scale environment. In a web scale environment, the IT team is responsible for building infrastructure, and then the applications all run on that reasonably generic infrastructure. And what the big mindset shift there is, the IT team or the infrastructure team is constantly on the hook for improving capacity. How much compute do I have? How fast can I store things? How much can I store? What's my I/O? In between distributed applications. So it changes the mindset of the IT organization from almost a maintenance perspective to an architecture and design forward perspective.
Well, do you have any tips on how an enterprise can get started on taking the web scale approach?
Yeah, the biggest tip I have is probably I'd say slightly controversial depending on your organization. We've watched a lot of companies try to do it incrementally, where they say, hey, I'm going to take my team and we're going to slowly start applying these principles to what we used to do. And while that can work, it often doesn't work as well as they would like. What we've seen work really effectively is when they say, you know what, this shift is important for our business to sustain and succeed in the future. We're going to take a group of people, we're going to set them aside, and we're going to say, you build us our web scale infrastructure. And then we start pushing new applications into that web scale infrastructure, continue to maintain and support old applications in your traditional infrastructure, and start migrating practices once you've established them. And the reason why is you need to kind of be willing to throw away everything you used to do, start from scratch, and come up with the way you want to be doing things. And then once you've done that, both operational, CapEx, suppliers, every decision you make around IT, you want to come up with the new way, and then start migrating that back into your traditional practice.
Are there any kind of different skills that networking and other infrastructure pros will need for this new kind of model?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much different skills, but it's it's how and where they would spend their time. When I talk to a lot of network operators these days, they spend a portion of their time doing architecture. They spend a reasonably large amount of their time doing kind of operations or ongoing maintenance and troubleshooting, and they don't spend that much time doing automation. In a web scale environment, it flips around. They spend a lot of time doing architecture, a ton of time doing automation to make sure that they're able to implement or execute that architecture repeatably and on purpose, and then they don't spend that much time doing operations itself. In the end, especially from a networking perspective, the transition to these web scale principles is really all about the observation that my business is going to continue to increase compute and network capacity, kind of unforeseeably in the future. It's kind of up and to the right as far as we can see. and I need to be able to have, for the same number of people, I need to be able to manage more and more capacity more efficiently, which means it needs to be highly automated, needs to be kind of self-checking. When you have an intent, can you prove to yourself that your intent was met? And you need to be able to have a supply chain that can drop capacity on you very cost effectively.
Does the IT team look different in a web scale model?
I don't know. Well, that's a good question. Oftentimes they don't necessarily look different, but what they think about is different. They don't, again, they think about, how do I automate things? How do I never get a call that something looks like it might not be working correctly? And that's a really weird mindset to put yourself into, because historically, because again, traditional IT practice, oftentimes the business unit would come to you and say, hey, here's our design, please make it happen. And so, the IT team is constantly learning how the infrastructure worked. How do I stand this thing up? How does it integrate with everything else that we've got going on? When you flip it around the other way, the IT team defines the infrastructure. They know innately how it works. And so they're not spending as much time not understanding what's going on or helping debugging stuff. It's really more about, yes, the infrastructure is good, let's fix your application.